So what's the get down?
Hip hop culture lifestyle show.
Where does your passion for the stuff that you create, where does that come from?
You know, I'm from the Upper West Side, what we like to call the Upper Best Side of New York City. So my stuff is really New York life. Much like Martin Scorsese paints with film, the Brooklyn, Italian, New York, Woody Allen perhaps paints the more Manhattan, neurotic Jewish New York. I think that I'm the the painter of the culture, and my era is hip hop. So I'm the painter of the narratives of hip hop.
I can dig it. Do you just strictly focus on hip hop, or you do everything?
When I was coming up in New York, I was a graffiti writer and I was a b-boy. I was dancing with dynamic breakers and a bunch of people.
We're gonna get into
that. But I would say that I definitely identify as a New York visual documenter of hip hop, New York, and all the marginalized.
Now that's a way of putting it right there. You know, it's long, but it's a way of putting it. So let me ask you. So let's get into it because you just touched on it, and I can't let that go. Let's talk about you as a graffiti artist. When did that all start for you?
I was writing graffiti by the time I was 9 years old, and I was never good, ever. My grandfather was a really dope letterer. He was a letterer for Prince Valiant, Felix the Cat. He was a professional sign painter. He was amazing. Right. Like my friends, all my graffiti writer friends would come over, and my grandfather, like in his 70s, would bust like a bubble letters breaking out of a wall, and they'd be like, "Oh my God, he's better than all of us,"
Right.
So like. But I never took it to a high level because I was so intrigued by the characters in the graffiti.
All right.
So my lettering was fine, but like people are like, "Oh, you must have been the craziest, most burner artist ever, bro. That's crazy. You're just like you're Bua. You're the great." No, I was terrible.
Right.
I was like, really, I had friends who were really good.
I find that hard to believe.
I worked from early on, and it was all very derivative. Like you take your Von Baudet character, and you do your 3D breaking out of the walls with mist and water, but I was into character. I was into the emotional quality of like everyone had that like Doe's character at the end of the letter. My characters were like more raw. They more just different and just messed up. They're all fucked up. You know what I mean? It was like as opposed to like the Ken Swift because those Doe's characters are very the personification and caricature of like Prince Ken Swift. That
I got you. Yeah.
The Muggsy.
So how long did you bomb?
Oh, I only wrote graffiti until I was a teenager, and then I got more into dancing and more into b-boying, and that's pretty much
because that's where I was
what
going.
I still do.
All right, yeah, we're gonna get into that.
Yeah.
So, how did you go from? Well, I get it. In New York, everybody, really gets into all facets of the culture back then. So, when you got to your b-boying phase, what was that introduction like?
B-boying was also parallel. Like you said, it was everything. You were b-boying, emceeing, DJ, graph writing. I think that my b-boying started probably at 9 years old too.
Oh, wow.
And I grew up right next to Rocksteady Park. So I grew up next to like, Ken Swift and Buck Thor, Kuriaki, Crazy Legs. So those were like my heroes. So even though I was a graffiti writer, I was also breaking, and breaking at that time was called physical graffiti. Because it was the physical incarnation of the stylism of the letters.
That's interesting.
Yeah. It's much like, any kind of Japanese writing. You just see that's kind of, or Egyptian calligraphy. It's like it's telling a story. So that's really what graffiti was doing, was telling a story of a time and a place.
So were you, when you got into it, I know you pop a lot. You know what I mean? But you popping wasn't big in New York. So did you do groundwork and windmills and all of that?
Yeah, I did groundwork. I did, I was definitely top rocking, up rocking, breaking. I got to about windmills. That was my level. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
my footwork was good.
Right.
6-step, 3-step combination, swipes, baby swipes. But, I wasn't. Once again, wasn't great. But I had a flavor. Even today, like if I top rock, I'm like, I still feel like I have flavor, depending on what weight I'm at. If I'm lighter, I have more flavor because you have more
ability. Yeah,
more ability to express yourself clearly.
So when did the popping come into play?
Popping was there from the beginning too, because I saw some dude from Cali breaking and popping at West 4th Street, and I was like, I don't know what that is, but I need to do that. That right there. And my partner was this dude, Mechanical Puppet, and he also came from LA.
All right.
So he was a New Yorker that went to LA, learned how to pop, came back here, and he had the hardest pops ever. I have videos of him and me on my roof in New York, and honestly, he's one of the best. To this day, it's dope. That's how crazy. I watch it to this day, and my popper friends are like, yo, that dude was nasty. And then we were also partners with a guy named Mailbox, who was like a ghetto celebrity, and he had a flat back of his head. That's why they called him Mailbox. And he had all these different New York styles. We used to go all over New York and battle people. So Mailbox was like a Harlem legend, and Ali was just nasty, and me. And we danced at like Brooklyn Academy of Music and street shows there, and eventually I went touring and toured. 1984, I was on tour in Europe for 6 months breaking.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Now, what was that experience like?
It was great. We did the first ever theatrical shows of breaking. We took breaking and put it into a theatrical format because my choreographer, Julie Arnell, was the Broadway choreographer of Hair. So she was a big deal choreographer.
Yeah.
So she grabbed a lot of street kids and turned us into an actual theater performance that was an hour and 40 minutes.
Damn.
It was pretty epic what she did. Like, I'm still friends with her now. She's in her 80s. But Julie Arnell, amazing, took some amazing, and really, was like the military. She was very mean. She used to dock us all the time. She didn't play around. It was a show, get in, get out. Get in, get out. We opened for like James Brown and Via Reggio. We did Spoleto Festival in South Carolina and in Spoleto, Italy. We danced at the Bussola Domani in Via Reggio. So it was like, we did a lot of stuff. I mean, she took us to a very high level.
Yeah.
So I was like doing theater, like improvising and acting and dancing. And we had to learn jazz and modern. And it was crazy.
Did you enjoy it?
I enjoyed it, but it was, you were thrown into a job. You're thrown into like and every time I came back to music and art, I was being left behind. So it was I was like, what, now I got to go to summer school. And my summer school, just this anecdotal story, but my summer school was in Boys and Girls High School in New York, and that was like the worst high school in Brooklyn in the world at that time. Wow. And that's where I went to summer school. And I was so bad at math, and this is how bad they were. They were calling me Einstein. I was giving them the cheat sheet. They were like, yo, Jess, you better hook that shit up. I was like, absolutely, bro. Are you kidding me? I'm not getting beat up by you at all. That was a night, that was every year I came back because I was touring so much, and I had to go to summer school. So it was never it was just work, rehearsal, school. That was my entire life.
So how many years did you just tour? And then come back and go to school?
It was like every summer I was touring.
Every summer?
Every summer. Dancing, touring, doing shows,
All right. So where did you go back from the dancing to doing the actual, artwork?
Well, I went to high school music performing arts, so I was an artist. So I was at school with Slick Rick, all those guys. Jay, remember that song? Fresh, fresh.
Yeah.
That dude. Dana Dane, he was at my school. I think Rick and Dane were seniors, and we were freshmen.
All right.
So I was going to school 135th and Convent. And so, I was going, every class was art. Right. So I got in on an art scholarship, and I was breaking. So my entire focus was breaking.
Right.
But at school, it was art. So I was taking classical painting classes, and then I was battling everybody after school, getting high, like really high.
Really?
Of course.
All right. So let me ask. All right. So you are. That's where you got your artist skills from, correct? And you already were doing your breaking. When did you decide, like, yo, I'm finna go. I'm finna take this somewhere else?
I knew by the time. Well, I went to a college to get a liberal education, and then I knew that wasn't for me. I was trying to like balance my life because it was like painting, dance. You know what I mean?
Right.
And my mom was a real intellectual.
Right.
You know, my mom was a Jewish New York intellectual, and my dad was a Puerto Rican loser. So it was like the juxtaposition of both worlds. And so my mom was like, you need to get a more classical understanding of literature and philosophy. And I did all that, and I was like, I gotta paint. So I got into Art Center College of Design in Pasadena, which is like the Harvard of art schools, on a scholarship, and I just went there. And that's when I moved to Cali. And that's when it got serious, because everybody there was the best in the world.
All right.
And I was the best in my world, and then I went there, and I was the worst in the new world. So it was like, oh yeah, this is easy, man. I went around the room on the first day of class. I looked at we were drawing just a woman, and I went around to the right, and I was like, oh my God, this kid is so good. And I went to the left, and I was sitting next to a kid named Victor D'Agostino, and he was so classical and so good. I went into the hallway, and I went, I gotta quit. I can't do this. I am so not on the I was so far below everybody. It was like shocking. It was a moment where you were like, yeah, I'm the and then you're just like, what the hell? You know what I mean? Like, you think you're the best boxer, and then you just step in with Floyd and you just get knocked out. It was one of those really shitty realizations that I sucked, and there were so many people that were better than me because I was living in my own universe.
Right.
And then I got out of my universe, and I was like, yo. And then I went back in the room, and I walked around. I saw there were some people at my level, and maybe like 1, 2 below me. And then a lot of that were good, but like I just happened to be sandwiched between 2 people that were way better than me.
Right.
And I said, I just got to stick this out. I just got to like really get my classical game going, and then allow my imagination was extraordinary, excellent. My ideas were nonstop. To this day, I have 50 different ideas for a painting every day, and it actually is a diatribe in my head. This kind of monologue that ceases to stop. Almost like an internal voice where it's like, oh, you got to do this new painting. Oh, how about this new painting? How come you haven't? Why have you not painted Shock G yet? Oh my God! How about this idea? And it's like I'm riddled with this incessant
work
call to work. Yeah, and I feel like that's it.
Wow.
And because you're only on this earth for so long.
Agreed.
And everything we do is meaningless unless it's meaningful for what you really, have to say. For me. Some people might like, I'm fine with just playing with my kids, hanging in the pool all day. That's great. But for me, I would go crazy.
So what do you try to say with your work?
I have no idea. No, I'm kidding. What I say with my work is that I want to tell the story of the culture in the most authentic way possible. I'm not always painting the culture. I'm not always painting hip-hop. But I want to also, everything I do is an exercise to sharpen my sword so that I'm better the next time, better the next time, better the next time. So it doesn't matter what it is. I just did a painting of GSP, Georges St-Pierre from the UFC. Right. I'm doing a commission of Paris. These are all stepping stones to greater things. And I'm working on my LL Cool J painting, which is a little bit more of an opus.
Right.
That's the tour de force. That's the great painting.
So where do the statues and because you do more than just paint. So where does all
the statues is the first ever elements of hip hop statues. So you got the MC, the B-boy, the graph writer, and the DJ. Right. So you have the 4 elements. So that's going to be dropping like in August 2021. So first time, we'll see. And then if it goes well, then I want to do a statue company.
Dig that.
Because the company I'm doing it with is Sideshow. It's a very giant, amazing company that my friend Greg Anzalone owns. but they only do Marvel, DC, and Star Wars for the most part. So they've got to train. You know, like, you know, we're talking about 25,000 Baby Yoda selling the first day.
Yeah.
They're shipping, you know, thousands of pieces a day. They're very big,
Right.
but they're the gold standard of statues. The gold standard. So what would it be like if we had not just these archetype figures of the MC, the B-boy, the grapher, and the DJ, but a statue of LL Cool J, a statue of Kool Herc, a statue of Big Daddy Kane, of Run DMC, of the Beastie Boys, of, you know what I mean? Like, and Kendrick Lamar.
Right.
And yeah, it's not going to sell as many Baby Yodas, but there's a market for it that is untouched and untapped.
That's real.
That's a market right there.
That's real.
This is a side thing, but so if they go well, then, you know, perhaps it's a good play. Because I think you know, if you define Bua, you're going to say, you know, I'm the court painter of hip hop. You know, or the you know, the godfather of urban art, whatever it is. But I want to make it so that people understand that this movement that we're all a part of is artistic and authentic and spiritually rich. That's my purpose. It's not just oh yeah. Because if you look at all of the important paintings, from Rembrandt, Tiepolo, Caravaggio, Rubens, Raphael, Michelangelo, whoever, they're capturing their time in a capsule of visual art. Right? Like, and some eras were just painting, you know, biblical figures and biblical scenes, and you know, some eras were just painting the aristocracy, the dukes, the popes, the kings. But I'm painting our culture, not just, you know, the celebrities like Jay-Z, but I'm painting also the scenes of it, so that one day that painting lives at a museum, and validates the culture as bigger than just, you know, something that's trite.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so this is like spiritually uplifting. Art is uplifting. And not just a manufactured version of it. There's so much manufacture, and not just graffiti, which is a linear version of it that has a ceiling to it, in my opinion. I think it's beautiful and it's incredible. I myself was never great, right? But it's got a ceiling. This is an experiential illustration of the culture.
It's dope, though. It's real dope. I can see a statue museum, you know what I mean?
And paintings, and you know, like my 1981 painting or whatever. There's a lot of important stuff. You know, it's like Norman Rockwell painted Americana, Saturday Evening Post. You know, Bua paints, you know, the hip hop.
So is your stuff music based? For me, music is the only true emotion. It's the only thing that can make you feel any kind of way anytime. So depending on what you play, like if you're playing pop, I'm pretty sure, like if you're playing Picture Me Rolling, you're not finna go ahead and draw a daisy. You know what I mean? So I'm saying, do you work like that, or is it something you already have in your mind where you're like, yo, this is what I'm getting ready to go ahead and do? Because I've seen you do your freestyle double-handed.
Yeah, I do both. You know, I create impressionistically, you know, like jazz, like Miles Davis might play. Just like whatever today's gonna happen with my trumpet, it's just gonna happen. Coltrane, let's go. And then, but sometimes I paint very much like, okay, so we're gonna go to rehearsal, you know, like it's a symphony, and it's very, very plotted out. I do my drawing, my thumbnails, my drawing, my compositional drawings, my value key, my color key, my research of what would LL be wearing in this paint. Like right now I'm going through that like really intense, not impressionistic, not improvisational piece. It's very like, I've got the Kango, I got the Shelto Adidas with the fat laces, and then I have the Apollo in the background, and then I got 1521 Cedric Avenue and all these little Easter eggs that you're finding in the painting. It's just that's what you got.
So yeah.
That's a lot of
draw like that though.
That's a lot. Like so you got to do it right, and I got to light it, and I got to figure out the lighting in my head, because there's no reference that exists. LL's not standing with a boombox in the middle of Cedric Avenue with Paul's Boutique buildings going this way, like East Village buildings, and then part of Queens, and then part of Harlem, and part of the Bronx. It's all this like amalgamation, and then buildings are kind of flying off everywhere. It's like this weird, it's like, you can't do that.
Right.
So I have to create it. And so I need to bring in reference and study.
Yeah.
It's much more of a methodical process.
I've seen you when you're drawing some of the things. First off, what is the two-hand thing that you do?
Well, I draw with both hands. So I draw with my right hand, and then I was trained to draw with my left hand because I was making too many mistakes drawing only with this hand. I wasn't able to experience the world differently. It's a different thing when you get so used to something, you start drawing habitually. The same. That's not good.
I got you.
So you have to break it up. So I draw with this hand and have the motor controls. So then all of a sudden I start accessing my right hemisphere of my brain, which is the side of your brain that deals with spatial relationships, which is the side of your brain that deals with observation, which is also the side of your brain that has no concept of time. So you're living in a timeless place if you're able to access that. So it's like tricking yourself. Like sometimes you got to work and, you don't want to do cocaine or Adderall, so you just switch hands. I mean, maybe you do want to do cocaine or Adderall.
No, you don't want to.
But you know what I'm saying? You got to biohack your own brain.
No, that's real.
Because otherwise you're going to sit around, I don't want to do it, or you just make the same mistakes. So it's a biohack working with both hands. And then what happened was after years of drawing my left hand, long story short is that I was sitting in a drawing class and this little Filipino guy came up to me with white long hair. He goes, "Oh, you're really good, but you're making really bad decisions." And I was like, "What?" And he was like, "Yeah, you're really good, but you're making bad decisions." And I was like, "Dude, fuck you." Like what? Like as if you're good. And so I walked over to him and I watched him draw and I was like, "Oh yeah, he's a lot better than me. What the fuck? Who is this guy?" And so it was like having a moment of my Yoda moment.
Right.
And then I go, "Well, what do I need to do? Like, because you're so good and you're so evolved." And he goes, "Stop drawing with your right hand, man." And so just come with me. And so I went to go study with him for like 7 years. I didn't draw with this hand at all. I just drew with this hand. And I started to be able to see and experience things. And then when I came back to drawing this way, I use it as kind of a measuring device. So it's easier for me to now draw with two hands than it is to draw with one hand.
Yeah.
And sometimes easier to paint with two hands. I feel more comfortable drawing with this hand, but more comfortable painting with this hand.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And Gregory Weir Kitan is that guy's name, and he was like, and he must be in his 80s, late 80s now, but he was such an amazing teacher and such a great draftsman. It's like a treasure. Like nobody knows him, but he's like one of those treasures.
Yeah, it sounds like it. What is the one artistry that you've either put together or you want to do that's been in your head?
I would like to dance more, and
Word?
yeah, I would love to. Besides, running an empire, but yeah, that was. I mean, it would be fun, right? Like it's so joyful, But as you get older, it's just so hard.
I mean, yeah.
But you see Papa Pete doing it, and he's older than me, and you're just like, God, I could do it if I did it, but I don't do it as much. But I like to do it.
So how do you feel about breaking being in the 2024 Olympics?
Whatever. It's fine. I mean, it gives it a platform. It gives it credibility. I feel that is good. And then the bad part is like, then there's going to be the shit that you don't like about it, which is rules and, everyone's going to hit their, triple, what is it? The triple axle.
Yeah.
Everyone's that will become like, oh, he didn't do the triple axle. So, or he's going to do the quadruple axle, And then people are going to start going. So I feel like even though it's going to be based on style and flavor and all these different categories, let's be real. You're going to have to do the triples. And if you can't, you're not going to be because it's a judging system. So once you make it a system and you're not able to break it because you're living in it, then you have to be complicit with that system. And so the person will be the gold medalist who is the most in the system. I'm not saying they're not the best. They could be. But you're going to have to do it by design. And so now that's inherently a problem. In my personal opinion. Could you imagine if like Miles Davis had to be within a system?
No.
And by the way, ballet is a system. The entire art is a system. You can't go out of the system. Boxing is a system. Jiu-jitsu is not a system because it's always being reconfigured. Art is not a system. But I'm saying there's going to be that system. So,
Big guy.
Gymnastics, it's amazing, but it's a system.
Where do you
And by the way, they grab most of their moves from b-boying anyway, so they're going to take a nice hit probably. They'll be like, why don't you watch that when you could watch that? I mean, I would think.
Where do you derive your inspiration from?
Everything. Life. Yeah, I think my inspiration comes from my life, just looking at people, studying people. Films.
What made you get into the abstract style that you use? Like how you did with Cuba. You know what I mean? How the arm is extended.
Yeah, this has always been my way of seeing the world. I see the world through an arcane eye, through a real warped perspective, because I think kids in New York are pretty warped. You really have a distorted sense of reality when you're there. I'm not even kidding. It's like when you leave New York, you feel like, oh my God, the rest of the world doesn't move like that. And so you see everything like, think about it. If you're a kid in New York, think about this. If you're growing up in New York and you're the son of an artist and the son of my grandfather who was also an artist, multi-generational artist, and I'm looking up at the sky and I see buildings and I'm a child, everything is distorted.
Right.
Everyone's like crazy, in your face. I don't know, like all of that energy filters into your vision of art. Right. For me.
Right.
Because that's where I'm from.
Take that. Now that's interesting. What is it that you want the world to get from your art?
I want the world to get from my art a feeling of peace and love. Because my world is my work, and my work is my world, and it boils down to one thing, which is oneness. Everybody belongs in my paintings. It's a community we all belong in. And my paintings are a reflection of that community that hip-hop really created. A place for all people to kind of come together in all walks of life.
Do you like to teach?
I do like to teach, but I don't want to teach anymore. It's exhausting. I taught at USC for 12 years. It's like, I taught classical figure drawing, so I love teaching, but you know what I mean?
Right.
I really do. I really love teaching, but I want to find a different way to do it. Like, if I were just to be on Twitch or Instagram, and I love doing that.
Twitch would be dope, though.
Yeah, I could do that one day, but sitting there with my students and all that's a lot.
That's a lot of different energies.
A lot of different energies. And if you don't want it, I don't want you in my class. And when you're teaching at USC, a lot of the kids are just like taking it to take it, like, oh, it's gonna be an easy A, and you're just like, oh man, like they're just sitting there like, oh, I just don't want to.
How can you tell if they want it?
Oh, you could tell. You could tell. Well, you want to be teaching at this stage of my life where people want to learn, not have to be there. There's a big difference.
So based off of how you grew up to where it shaped you to today's point, to where, you're like, you have the view that you have and you do the artistry that you do you think that there's a market for more like
Yes, for sure. I used to think of myself as I created a lane. If you're in my lane, I'm going to kill you. Because this is my fucking lane that I spent my entire life creating.
Right.
No one has created this lane before me.
Right.
But now I see it as I created a lane, come in my lane, make the lane bigger. There's no longer a one-lane freeway. This is 4 lanes, 5 lanes, 6 lanes. It's endless. Everybody needs to come in the lane. That's an abundance mindset over a scarcity mindset. So yeah, it's a place everybody belongs. So come in the lane, join.
Is animation on your level?
Absolutely. NFTs, animation, all of it. I'm doing it all.
Yes, you are.
Thank you.
So why don't you tell us some of the stuff that you are doing so that, people can understand, exactly the level of different things that you do?
I'm working on a bunch of commissions. I'm working on 2 books. I already have 2 books with HarperCollins. I'm working on statues. I'm working on NFTs, animations, a lot of stuff.
Is there anything you're not doing?
There's nothing I'm not doing.
That's what I figured. That's what I thought you were going to say.
Yes. I'm actually sitting here doing an interview, which is on top of all that.
Yeah. And in a minute you're going to leave because I know you got to go do some more stuff. So that being said, what is it that you want the world to know about Justin Bua?
I want the world to know that Justin Bua was an important artist.
That's simple.
That's it.
All right. I got one that I think is a little bit better.
Okay.
What game would you give to somebody?
What
game would you give to somebody that's coming into, wants to be a Justin Bua artist?
I would say work hard and be disciplined and be critical of yourself as well. Don't think you've arrived. You never arrived. Michelangelo was 81. He said, I'm just beginning to learn how to draw.
I'm on that brainwash, full rollout, anonymous. Underplay the overplay, strategic, I promise. More dope brings more Negroes. Watch them heroes, pro lethal. Dream killers feast on people. Nubius indeed, mine on the hunt. Paul Bear, sharp fluid, gates and piston bumps. No excuses, that's a sin. Back to the begin. Muscle memory, pseudo respect and revenge. Plays blindfolded, a bucket list with interest. Forgiveness, the shadows and mirrors who handle business. Legacy, all grind, no guest list. Land in jurisdiction, make you bread prejudice for the purists and the tourists. Q sticky for ghetto jurors. Swing high, swing low. You forgot that we do this. Bank selection, smooth DR vibe. Underground icon. You have now been gentrified.